Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining me. My name is Kassandra and I'm going to take you through this yoga for equestrians practice. So this is specifically a yoga class with stretches that you can do after riding. This summer, I started taking riding lessons and I'm doing it 3 times a week now. I am completely obsessed and it's a little bit of everything. And let me tell you, my saving grace has been yoga. So I'm going to take you through what I do pretty much every single time when I get home from the barn. As you probably know, if you take lessons and ride often, it can really take a toll on your legs, on your back, on your shoulders. I mean, it really works your entire body. So this is a great class. You don't need a lot of time. You don't need any props. It will help you improve flexibility in the long run. And also it's going to alleviate any soreness that you might have. So let's begin standing up. We're going to start in a goddess pose, which is a very wide squat. So you can open up your legs, turn your toes out, heels in. So you're pointing kind of like at that 45-degree angle. And then go ahead and bend into your knees, and you can just bring your hands to rest over your knees and over your thighs. And if you just got back from riding, I'm sure you can feel this one right away. If you're able to go a little bit deeper, you can intensify this by lowering onto your forearms and really using your elbows to push your knees out. So releasing through the inner thighs, through the inner groin. And we'll add a little shoulder release here, so you can bring your right hand to your right thigh and just drop your right shoulder down. So you're getting a nice stretch through your back. And we want to maintain that slow, steady breath. And let's go and do the same thing on the other side. So bring your left hand to your inner left thigh, drop that left shoulder down. So nice spinal twist here. And keep trying to melt your hips down even lower. Coming back to center, let's find our wide-legged fold. So you can turn, you want your feet to be parallel to the shorter edges of your mat. And then go ahead and let yourself fold on down, straightening your legs. You might need to readjust your stance a little bit if you feel like your feet are too wide or too narrow. And see if you can really relax your head, let your neck be heavy. And you can do any arm variation here. Sometimes just having your hands, palms flat to the floor is nice. You can hold on to your ankles or to your toes, bending your elbows away from one another, just getting into those hamstrings. We're really going to try to release from our feet, our ankles, all the way up into the legs, really focusing on the quads as well today. Into our hips, low back, and a little into our shoulders. So take one more big breath here. And you can bring your hands back to center, just lift up a little bit, and you're going to toe heel your feet a little bit wider than your hips. Heels in, toes out. Again, just a deeper variation of our squat. This is probably the pose that I do the most after riding. Balasana, your garland pose, or your yogi squat. You're using your elbows to push your knees open and away from one another and really try to lengthen the crown of your head up as you let your tailbone be heavy. Trying to release any tension that may have accumulated here. As much as possible, try to relax the muscles in your thighs. And see if you can even relax your feet so you're not gripping your toes into the mat. Let's release our hands down. You're going to straighten your legs again, turn your toes in, find a ragdoll fold. So for this one, bend your knees as much as you'd like, and you can hold on to your upper arms and maybe sway a little bit side to side. So don't worry about having your legs super straight. Instead, think of decompressing, letting your belly rest over your thighs. And we'll move into what I would say is maybe the second most important pose for equestrians. We'll come into a toe squat. So if you've been riding properly with your heels down, this should feel maybe painful, but good in the long run. So you want to tuck your toes under and let your hips rest on your heels. So if you've just gone riding, I know for me right after, this is like sometimes excruciating. Maybe you're feeling okay. You can always take some of the weight out by keeping your hands and your fingers on the mat and not letting yourself sink all the way back. But I know for me, before I started riding, I felt nothing while doing that. This felt so easy, and now it's not, it's not as easy as it used to be. But just try to breathe into it. Roll your shoulders back, down and away from your ears. Just a few more breaths here, really stretching. And let's release. Bring that weight forward, hands on the mat. Just point through your toes, maybe roll out your ankles a little bit. And we'll just do a little counter stretch from this. So point your toes back, sit on your heels again. Bring your fingertips behind you and see if you can lift your shins and your knees off the mat. So stretching more along the top of the ankle, top of the foot. Try not to round through your spine here. Really broaden and open up through your chest. And release. Keep your big toes together, and now let's come into Balasana, our child's pose. Widen your knees as much as you're able to while still pressing your hips back towards your heels, and then walk your hands all the way forward as you fold on down. Try to let gravity do the work for you here, so you're not pushing or struggling against the mat. Three more deep breaths. Try to relax your chest a little more. Let's come forward into our Sphinx Pose. So you're going to slide all the way onto your belly. You can bring your knees back in so they're hip width distance apart with your toes pointed back. And here we're focusing on a back bend, really broadening through your chest, pressing and pushing your shoulders down. And it's almost as if you're trying to drag your heart forward while slightly pushing your pubic bone into the floor to decompress along that lumbar spine. Now we'll keep this little back bend, but let's add a quad stretch and release our thighs. So I like to just bring my left forearm at about a 45-degree angle and bend into your right knee. If just by doing this, you feel something jam into your lower back, instead, I'm gonna ask you to do this lying down and just don't worry about the back bend for this one. You're going to reach back with your right hand and see if you can pull that heel in towards the glute. So what's important here is that I'm really pushing my hips and my pubic bone into the floor to really concentrate the stretch along the front of my thigh, deep into the psoas, deep into the quads, all the way to the top of that knee. And you might even be getting a little bit of a shoulder and chest stretch through that right shoulder. And let's release. We'll go do same thing on the other side. So brace yourself. Choose if you're going to stay up or if you'd prefer to lay down. Let's bend into our left knee and reach back to pull in. And try to keep your ankle reaching towards your glute so you're not letting your foot sway side to side, and you're also not letting your knees open up wider than your hips. And the more you do these, the easier they'll get over time. And let's release, push back up onto hands and knees, and we'll come into what is called Equestrian Pose. So of course, it's a great one for us to do. You're gonna step your right foot forward in between your palms to the top of your mat, and you can just keep your fingertips down on the floor. So it's really just a low lunge. Right knee is stacked over the top of your ankle, and you're pressing your hips forward and down. So working to get a little deeper into our hip flexors rather than into the quads. And for our last few breaths, if you'd like to go deeper into this pose, you can transition to lizard. So bring both hands to the inside of your right foot. You might need to wiggle your foot out a little bit wider, and you might come down onto your forearms. Try to keep your big right toe pushing into the floor so you're not flopping open. And coming back up onto the palms, step back, tabletop pose, and let's do the same thing on the other side. Left foot steps to the top of the mat. My knee is directly over the top of my ankle. Imagine that with every exhale, you're letting your hips melt down a little bit further, getting a little closer towards the mat. You might choose to stay here, or you can deepen this by transitioning to lizard. So both hands to the inside of that leg, maybe widen just a touch, and you can come down onto those forearms. Push down into your big left toe. Try not to round too much into your upper back here. Keep a nice lift and opening through your heart. And we'll lift all the way back up, step it back into your tabletop pose. And now from here, let's come into a half saddle pose. Again, with the name, you can pretty much see this is good for equestrians. So for this one, you're going to sit back. You want your thigh bones parallel towards the longer edges of the mat. And my right calf is kind of on the outside here of my thigh, and I have all toenails pushing down into the floor. And you can bring your left leg out in front of you. So we're gonna work on the right leg first before doing the other side. So from here, see if you can lift up, tuck your pelvis under. And just from doing this, you should start to feel a stretch through that right thigh into your quads, and then set yourself back down. And you're going to lower down to whatever your edge is. So what we don't want is for that knee to start lifting off the floor. Really try to keep pushing and pressing it down. And try to push your right hip down as well. So you're keeping your hips leveled. And maybe this is where you're going to want to stay. You're also welcome to lie all the way back down. But again, really try to keep contact with the mat so it's not lifting up. I know this is a super deep stretch, so don't push yourself too much. Just go to wherever you feel sensation without pain. And if you had laid back all the way, like what I'm doing here, you can tuck your chin to your chest, prop yourself up, and you can release from here. We'll go right away to the other side. Might feel good just to straighten that leg first. So right foot is flat to the floor. Bring that left foot in next to your glute. You want the top of your foot to be pushing into the mat. Left thigh is parallel to the longer edge of your mat. Lift and tuck under. Then lay back down on your tailbone, on your sacrum, and start to find your position, your edge. Push that left hip down. Notice how it wants to lift and roll to the side. And try to keep pressing your left knee into the mat, even if you choose to lower down all the way. And ideally, these are the types of stretches you would do on a regular basis, not just after your ride. And you'll probably notice it's really different. So it's morning for me. I was not riding before recording this, so I have a lot more ease and opening in the poses. Whereas if I've just been riding, muscles will be tighter, you'll be a little bit more stiff, a little bit more sore, so you might not be stretching quite as deep. So it's really nice if you can do this regularly to observe the differences. And we'll start to come all the way back up. Stretch it out. And let's come into our butterfly pose. Finishing up here, soles of the feet together, knees fall apart, really working on that external hip rotation, and fold on down. So you can choose how close you want to have your heels towards your hips. And I'm making this a yin styled passive fold. So I'm not pushing, not pulling. I'm letting my spine naturally round and just folding down here. Let's come up. Come to take a seat. Check in to see how you feel. Might feel good just to take a little twist. Left hand to your right knee, right hand behind you. Open up through your chest, just to release your low back here. Same thing to the other side. Right hand to your left knee, left hand back. All the way back to neutral. Thank you so very much for doing this stretchy practice with me. I really would love to hear from you. Let me know if you think this will be helpful, if you enjoy these poses, and hopefully you'll really find it beneficial as a way to complement your lessons and your riding and all of your time on the saddle. Please subscribe, and I hope to practice again with you very soon.